Yes, hello. My name is Krassnig. I will start this presentation with a short introduction of myself, but also with a short introduction of my colleague from SAP, Matthias Wienerroither, who is a senior project manager at SAP. Myself, Krassnig, I'm the head of the SAP Competence Center and the IT Application Management at Heinzel Group. And today we will talk about the S/4HANA wave-based transformation at Heinzel. So what's on the agenda for today? We will start with a short introduction about Heinzel Group, about ourselves, and then we will move on with the S/4HANA project scope, and then we will move on with the data migration approach, which we did with our partner, the SAP. And in the end of the presentation, we'll continue with a lessons learned slide, on which I can give you some insights about the lessons we learned throughout our project. Also, I would like to thank Nikolaus Unger for the invitation to this, great event. I think it's a huge success. It's a very big honor for me to be here and to present Heinzel Group as a successful customer. So, a short introduction about Heinzel Group itself. What are we doing? Basically, we are doing old economy. And by that, I mean we are producing goods which are actually materialized and can be touched from others. And what we are doing is that we are producing paper in large quantities, but also producing pulp, which is basically a resource for the paper production. And we are also deeply involved in the trading business. And by that, I do not mean some kind of forex trading. By that, I mean that we are involved in the trading business of paper products itself. So our major sites are located in Austria and in Germany, where we're having our big paper machines. And on the other slide, you will see an example for a paper machine. This is basically a very, very big and huge asset that is producing paper, of course, and is very maintenance intensive. So our major sites are in Perth, which is in Styria, in Austria, where we are having 2 paper machines. Then we have additional paper machines in Laakirchen. This is located in Upper Austria. But we are also having paper machines located in Germany and the big pulp production in Estonia, which we call our Estonian cell. And next to the paper production itself, as I mentioned before, we are involved in the trading business of paper, which we do with the Europapier in German and with the Heinzel sales and with Bunzl und Biach, which is basically involved in recycled waste paper trading business. So this should give you a brief overview about our company, where we are standing, what we are producing, and what we are basically doing. Here's another overview about our 3 major trading companies, our 7 paper machines, where we are producing them, and our pipelines, and also our sales volume at the year 2023. And this is an image of our paper machine. It's just an example. As you can see, it's a very, very big structure, very large. It's very costly, obviously, to maintain those paper machines, but it's also very costly to, set them up and keep them running. And also, it's pretty much unacceptable to shut them down throughout the HANA transformation. And this was a big reason why we then worked together with SAP in order to ensure that these complex machines keep on running throughout our rollouts. So as you can see, these are many, many meters long, and if you put a human next to a paper machine, it will rather appear small than big. So back where we started, Heinzel Group, it was very similar. I don't know if you saw the Bühler presentation yesterday, but similar to Bühler, we started in 1970s, somewhere around that, even before I was born, with the R2 system. And then Heinzel evolved into the ECC system in 1993. And based on the ECC system, we started growing. We started growing with our processes, we started growing with our businesses, and we started growing with our complexity. And this became so big and so complex that we were facing challenges in order to grow further. And what I mean by that is that we, from a Heinzel perspective, want to acquire new companies and grow in business, of course, and therefore we needed a system, or we need a system, which ensures that and gives us a leverage to grow as a company. And as you can see, in 1993, with the ECC system, there were many, many years in the past which made the system bigger and even more complex. And by that I mean a lot of custom reports, a lot of custom ABAPs, lots of custom functionalities, which ensured, of course, a very stable system back in the days, but it was at some point very hard to maintain and very hard to put it into the next step. So we realized that we need to change something in order to grow further as a company. And therefore, we started our S/4HANA project in 2019. I think we were one of the first companies in Austria that started actually with the project itself. And therefore, we made our mission statement, especially for the project approach, that we want one system, not only for our production mills, but also for our trading business. This was very, very important for us to ensure. So in the past, we had, growing over time, of course, several systems on the ECC. So we do not have, we had there in our free system, there in our free system, we had interfaces there and there and there and so on and so forth. I think you can relate to that. And we wanted to shrink that down on one system, and one system for production and one system for trading business. And what we also wanted is to have some kind of customer competence center which works for the whole group. We wanted to establish that, and basically the main challenge that we had here, the main premise for our mission here was to provide a system for further growth, and this was the most important thing. So what we did before we even started into the template phase in 2019, we had to make some kind of assessment on how our application structure was set up and where we currently are. And then we realized that if we want to achieve this goal, we have to standardize our processes and also our data models and our interfaces, so that we have a system that can be maintained in the future, but also provide us a leverage for growing. And we also realized, based on our culture and on how we worked or still work sometimes currently, is that we have to implement some kind of change management, because from a cultural and historical perspective, we used to work for each mill at some kind in a standalone version, which means each mill had their own system, each mill had their own interfaces to subsystems, and therefore it was very important to emphasize on change management itself throughout the whole project. And I think this was, and we will talk about it later on in the lessons learned, one of the most important things to ensure throughout a HANA rollout or throughout the whole transformation phase of a company. So our approach was basically from the beginning that we wanted to start on a green field, and then very quickly we realized that it's in theory it's very easy said, but in practice it's not that easy to set up basically. So we decided to mix the brownfield approach with the greenfield approach, and in the end we had the so-called bluefield approach, which we were focusing on. And the title of the presentation is our wave-based approach, and by wave-based I mean we did not want to have the transformation or the project ending with a big bang, but what we really wanted was to have each mill and each trading company separately transformed into S4 based on our template, which we developed in 2019, and then continue with the next company and with the next company and with the next mill. And as you can see, in 2019, we started developing our template. And in 2020, we started to roll out this template for our first company, which was the Estonian cell, which is producing pulp. While we were rolling out, of course, you all know what happened in 2020. This was a very challenging situation that we're dealing with. So we had to transform the organization from more or less get-together environment in a virtual environment. and we still had to continue in our template phase with the production business and with the production template before we could continue in 2021 with our first production site in Perth. And then we moved on with Lackirchen, where we also have 2 paper machines set up. And then something interesting happened in between those rollouts that we are having, or were having. The company decided to acquire another company from UPN, which is another big player in the paper business. The company site in Steyrermühl, which is also located in Upper Austria. And this was basically the proof of concept that we could provide this natural growth by providing a system that could implement and fulfill our business needs for the recently acquired new company. And then we managed with our new S4 system to integrate the company into our system landscape within a year. And this was a huge success. And therefore we have this Steyrermühl site a little bit different from the color because it was totally unplanned. We were overwhelmed by the decision. So, okay, you have to deal with this now. And luckily we had a system structure that would allow us to do that. But back when we are thinking about now on the templates and on the waves, how we were moving forward was that we decided to use waterfall project management methods in combination with agile project management methods. And what I mean by that is that after we had the template set up for us and moved on with the next company, we made some fit gap workshops with business, with our lead consultants and with our external partners. And then we got our backlog for the sprint planning, which used to happen once a month, and was monitored through weekly meetings where we talked about, okay, how far are we moving forward with our template and with our rollout, and ensured that as well business and the business and technical consultants could deliver the working packages within time. And another important aspect of the whole project was the migration part itself. Because as I mentioned before, shutting down a paper machine is basically unacceptable for us as a company. And this means that we had to find a partner which could ensure us that we could continue producing while we were rolling out the template and switching the system, switching the interfaces. And luckily we found SAP as a partner for the migration part because it was very crucial for us to keep on producing while we were switching the system. And therefore I would like to ask Matthias now to join me on the stage because he will give us a brief insight about the road to success with the Crystal Bridge.
Thanks a lot, Christian, for having me. So how does the road to success look like? I've seen this slide over the last 2 days several times, which is good because it indicates we have a clear path forward how to do those migrations and projects. Christian will give more details later, but just as a glimpse to show you what is the procedure there. So we start with the discovery, which is basically setting the team, agreeing on a project plan, and understanding the high-level requirements. Next thing is we deep dive into migration workshops. We have our migration object list. We go them through each and every one, and we bring all into a migration blueprint. That's the design. Next, it's about time to implement all those rules. So be it how to select or how to transform the data. And after that, it's getting really interesting because then the test is coming, and the test is several times this will be executed. Everything starts that the customer will provide a source system, a target system, and then we simply move the data from A to B, check it, and hand it over to Heinzel again, that they can perform their tests, and then we already prepare for the next phase. We will do this, or we have done this 3 times in the project, and there is one last round, which is the go-live simulation that has a very specific goal. It's about clocking the time. It's about really perfectly running the data migration and that everybody knows what he or she has to do. And then a few weeks later, we go live over the weekend, and we have a smooth and safe hypercare phase. So that's the plan that we always want to achieve in a project. And on the next slide, I'm going to share you some information, what is the technical thing behind it. So you can see two silos. On the left side, there is the source system. On the right side, there's the target system. And it's mostly, that's the goal, to bring the data from A to B. How are we doing this? First thing is selecting the right data. So not taking over everything in this project, but really selectively taking over what is needed. Second thing is then going into the import mode, which is basically applying transformation modes and moving the data as we want to have them in the future, or how new processes needs those data. So then there is a system, a target system, but still it's an R3 system in theory. The S4 cockpit comes to play, which is creating all the structures and all this information that is needed in an S4 system, the ACDocker, the MatDoc, so you name it. Then we're almost done. In this project, we also use the document split to enrich further data information. And last point before we hand over to the customer, to the tests, there is the validation component. The cool thing is with Crystal Bridge, you have the red lines, the green lines. You see through the process, through all the steps, is the data migration okay or is it not okay? And at the end, we also add the human component, which is some spot checks on the very critical topics or on some basic stuff like are the balances matching, is the stock okay? So with that information, I head back to Christian to give you some more details.
Thank you, Matthias. So in practice, how was this done? So what we did here in our migration approach was that we started with this analysis and design phase, where basically SMP helped us to pick up our requirements, not only from an IT side, but also from a business side. And once we had those requirements written down, we continued with or SMP basically continued with the execution of the data analysis. And once this data analysis was done, SMP presented this data analysis towards us, where we could give some feedback. But in the end, what was the goal? We wanted to achieve our business blueprint, or at least the first version of our business blueprint, because at this stage, basically, or at this phase of the migration, the business blueprint is the first draft version of it. It's not the final version itself, but it will evolve throughout the migration. The implementation of it, of this business blueprint, is then based on those rules. You have the business blueprint, and out of the business blueprint, you can get, or SMP basically can get the rules for the data migration. But nevertheless, what in any case needs to be done from the customer is basically deliver the input for the data migration itself. And by that I mean you have to think about, for example, in finance, when you are wanting to migrate your posting data or want to migrate the master data from a customer or, for example, from a supplier side, that you have to think about, okay, chart of accounts on the ECC system looked like that. We had a certain account number, and now on the S4 system, of course, thinking about the ledger logic, you have to provide new account numbers, which then will be documented in certain files, which then can be used from SMP to migrate the data itself. So this is a very important part that business and the key user need to make sure in order to make the migration a success. Also, throughout the implementation phase, which is happening again and again throughout the whole rollout, of course, the customizing and the developments, which were basically defined throughout the sprint phase before, need to be implemented in the system. And out of that, you get an additional update of the business blueprint itself. And once you are having defined the rule set and also the business blueprint, the migration itself can start. And as you know, I showed you before, we have several migrations for several companies, and all the steps which are showing now are basically the same for each migration. This is a big upside. The upside is that you will get some kind of routine into the migration itself. So the business gets the routine, especially when it comes to testing. So they are aware about the efforts, they are aware what is expected from them, but also you get the awareness from IT side, from your consultants and from your competence center itself, where there might be some tricky parts that need to be obtained. And also, I think, throughout this whole data migration process in waves, also SAP basically gets very important experiences throughout this whole phase, because yeah, the migration gets better and better with each trial migration itself. So the migration process then starts with the first trial migration, as I said before, where the customer is providing a migration system, which is basically a system copy of the development system or the queue system, it's preferable. And then SAP starts with the data migration. And before business and key users and IT started testing, SAP provides you with the data analysis beforehand. So I think this is a big plus, basically, that you get this data analysis beforehand, and then the key users and business can start testing and give some valuable feedback for the next trial migration. And this is happening a couple of times throughout the test migration 2 and the test migration 3, which is basically the same process over and over again, ending up in a cut-over plan for the migration and for the go-live itself, but also in improvements for each migration step and for each migration wave. And this is, I think, a big plus in the migration approach in waves. So the test efforts for the first migrations, TM1 to TM3, are very high for business, for IT. But then, once it comes to the go-live simulation, the test efforts decrease, because, of course, you have those experiences and mistakes cleansed in the migrations before, so you can start into the go-live simulation. And in the end, when the, so to speak, big bang in the wave is happening, in the migration and the go-live itself, the test efforts are very low, basically because out of the work that was done before, you can be pretty much sure that everything will be working fine. And obviously for us it did, because we managed to make every rollout without any complications in production. With a certain date and time, we switched the interfaces, we switched the system, and the paper machine kept running, and we could still produce, especially in a time where the economic environment was very demanding and where it was absolutely unacceptable for us to shut down, because we had some obligations to our customers as well. So this was basically the migration approach that we had. And now Matthias will give us some insight about the migration tool, the Crystal Bridge, which is used for S&P for the migration.
Okay, thanks, Christian. Last handover to me now. From data migration side, 4 key aspects. What is great and what does the Crystal Bridge software offer? On the one hand, focus. Focus is very important because Heinzel did not have the S4 SAP prerequisites to go to S4. They rather choose on their own behavior. They can choose by the company codes, they can choose by easiest first, hardest first. So we are not reliant on any SAP pre-projects that needs to be done. We can go directly with the scope that we want to have to the target. So that's number one. Number two is transformation. If you want to renew your system and you make some adaptations, you definitely have to work with the data in order that the processes are working there. We kept a lot, which means took over the history for logistics to keep the best and deal with the rest. So we have keep. Second one is eliminate. So a great possibility to do housekeeping. For example, Heinzel had a lot of controlling plan versions and they simply got rid of them. So we didn't take them over. Another example is park documents. We also left them behind and didn't take them over to the target system. So keep, eliminate, and the most important one is transform. So there are some easy things that we can do, and we did, like renumbering the assets or changing the keys of the company codes when going to S4, until some more things that have a little bit more impact. For example, on the asset under construction side, the cost elements were changed. So from internal orders to WBS, there was a transformation done, which helped in the end Heinzel to carry on the S4 system. So that was the second thing. The third thing is more high level. It's the approach how to migrate. It's a mix and match. We're doing a table-based migration, but we also had some parts with posting-based in it, and that can be combined very, very well. Also, you have the possibility to choose any date in the year to go live. So if there are some problems, go live can shift it easily by 1 month or by a few weeks. Next to that is the topic business continuity. I think Christian mentioned it. Very important for them to not shut down the production. And alone by using the table-based approach, we were very, very quick, very fast. Together with the selection approach, we can leave data behind. So in the end, this will give us a speed, and this will help the customer to achieve their downtime goals. So Christian, back to you.
Thank you, Matthias. So what are the lessons learned for Heinzel Group? I mean, after each rollout, after each wave, we did a lessons learned workshop where we discussed the good, the bad, and the ugly for each migration and also for each rollout. And I mean, one of the big pluses was, of course, this mix and match approach throughout the migrations, where we were flexible enough, to get enough detail when necessary for reporting, for migrating, sorry, and cut down migration complexity when necessary. But I think the major lessons that we learned, and as I said, we started very, very early in 2019, based on the knowledge that we had back then and the assumptions that were made, was that having everything on one system can be quite challenging, to be honest, especially when you want to provide 24/7 production capacities on your system. And what I mean by that is that you have, if you're not aware of potential risks and dangers, you have in your new environment some challenges regarding system stability. So for example, the CDS view concept, I think a lot of you are aware of this CDS view concept, is basically a very good way to provide, for example, live analytics, but it's also very dangerous, because if you're having no governance with your CDS views and for your developers, there's really the potential that one select star statement in the CDS view can shut down the system when it's used in the wrong context or in the wrong situation. So basically what you do not want to have is your production up and running and all machines are running on full capacity, and then somebody is loading AZOK into a report, then you will get some performance issues. So I can assure you that. Another major importance of the lessons that we learned was the change management itself. It's very, very important for those kind of projects, even, in my opinion, even more important than only technical parts of the project, because if the organization is not ready or is having difficulties in accepting the new landscape or the new processes, then you will have, of course, troubles with the users accepting the system itself. But there are more lessons learned, and I think I can give you a good insight afterwards, after this presentation, which is about to end now, in the green room. Thank you, Matthias, for joining me on stage and giving us insights. Thank you for your attention, and have a nice evening. Thank you. Bye-bye.